Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast here, joining you from Metropolis, and I believe a state over is my guest today, and I'm excited really about this, just sort of these marketing podcasts we've been doing lately from all these people across the industry that are doing a great job on the Shed Sales Professionals page and others to kind of put content out there that is very, very worth reading and watching and learning about if you're marketing in your business, and we all are. So before we get rolling, just a couple of ways to stay plugged in. If you want to give us a call over here, 618-309-3648. That is my direct line. Feel free to call, text, email. If you want to email me, it's info@shedgeek.com. Of course, you can check out our website at shedgeek.com, fill out any lead forms to contact us, as well as our newsletter. For those of you who don't get the newsletter, please subscribe. Just go to Deanna, Deanna, at shedgeek.com, and she will get you subscribed to the newsletter. Go read blogs, check out today's description, and interact with the links on there. Click and take a look at different services that people are offering. We at Shed Geek want to be a resource for you. All these private pages, check them out. I mentioned the Shed Sales Professionals page. We're admin on that. We love being able to build community through the industry. And for the call-in landline, those of you who have Amish friends who want to listen or Plain Community friends who want to listen, 330-997-3055. And shout out to Wolf Valley. I put on my Wolf Valley hat today. We interviewed Wolf Valley down in Itasca, Texas in year 1 of the podcast. We're now in year 6. So shout out to Josh Villalobos, Charles, who, do what they do down there. Josh was great on the show. He had said something to me back then that said Americans have a problem, and that is that they have so much opportunity, they often don't know what to choose from. And that is certainly understandable as we've looking at the last 5 years of the podcast. Thank you, Josh and Charles, for all you guys do and have done. And thank you for the hat. We appreciate that. So today's guest, Isaac, tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, for sure. So I design trust systems that prepare the customer for the sales call. That's essentially what I do. Most marketing tries to persuade people to buy. I focus on helping companies educate customers so that before they even have the sales conversation, pretty much the customer's ready to buy, or at least asking more buying questions. What I've found is that the number one question that I got as a sales rep when I did that was, how much is that building, right? And ideally, it should be what's a good size, what are good size and options for my backyard, for my situation? That should be the number one question. Unfortunately, it's how much for that building. And I believe that is because it's not a sales problem. It's not a marketing issue. It's a messaging it's a messaging issue, or I would say a messaging opportunity. And that's what that's what I really try to focus on, especially with high ticket sales. Anything that's above $1,000, you've got to help educate the buyer, have clear, transparent pricing and understanding of why they're pricing the way they are, and then have proper expectation alignment. So that way, after the sale, you're not having people calling you and being like, "Hey, my shed's broken."
I like the term educate the buyer because that fits right into our newest adventure of consultation, because as a B2B company right now, where we only focus on those in the industry, whether it be a service provider or a product, provider, what we have learned is that the best educated customer can be, they helps them make the best decision. And that's oftentimes what it comes to with marketing. And you own a marketing agency, or Bear Country Marketing. We'll make sure to put a link to the website there. If you guys go check out the show description, there'll be a link where you can click on and go and learn more about Isaac Neal and what he does. But yeah, there's just a lack of sometimes understanding. And I really feel like, that's where consultation plays a role, is you can help educate, because I've found that most people, Isaac, tell me if I'm wrong, but most people, even if they can learn your job, and they can, of marketing, once they realize what all it entails, they're like, I don't want to do it. I'd rather just pay someone anyway to do it. There's a lot to this.
Yeah. Well, and in my head, it's not just the marketing, right? And it's not just the sales. It's not just the production. It's all of it. And every single, across the buyers, across the entire sales process, there are things that people are leaking revenue. Like, companies are leaking revenue because they're not building trust on the front end. Basically, what they say is they throw up a fancy, picture of a building. They have a price, right? And that's it, right? Which doesn't really tell me much about the building. So I just compare price. If I'm somebody that doesn't know anything about sheds, and 4 years ago, that would have been me, right? Knew nothing about sheds. If I were to come onto the lot and you were to tell me that building was $9,000, which is the average price of, a quality shed, I'm going to tell you to, get out, I'm out of here, right? Because I have no idea what this category is. When I think of a shed, before I knew what sheds were, I was thinking Amazon, I was thinking shed kits, and I was thinking my neighbor next door who's a builder, right? And if I price that through those lenses, I'm looking at a Menard shed that's a resin shed for $500, right? I'm looking at $1,500 shed kits. I'm looking at $3,000 at the max with a small tough shed, or a metal shed, something cheap. That's what I think of when I think sheds. But what I found when I finally went through the training as a sales rep, I saw, oh my goodness, this is a house. This is a whole different structure. This is like a permanent structure on your property that's like built to withstand 30 years, or more, depending on how good it's built. And then, I discovered LP siding, and I just couldn't, I was absolutely just blown away by LP. And cause I started in pest control, funny enough. And I absolutely hate vinyl siding. I am everything about it. It cracks, it warps, it creates an environment for bugs. It's terrible. I can't stand it. And so, but nobody knows the quality of LP. Nobody understands it. Nobody understands the quality of the shed that you're actually purchasing. That's why I kept saying, hey, this is built like a house. That was like one of my number one lines, because I knew it was the only way that I could describe to them that this isn't just some lumber thrown up together. This is a permanent structure in your backyard to beautify your home and build and build incredible value from your house too.
So do you think, I was just getting ready to write down, words matter? We talk about education. It sounds like a very educational segment, here
Yeah.
lately, but words matter, and like words matter in your marketing, in your ad copy, right? So the question starts to become, do we have an awareness problem when we're trying to sell a shed or trying to market a shed, with the audience that we're trying to market to, based off of what we're calling quality and their perception of what that is? Because most
There's a
things you do look
mismatch.
at turns up being a plastic shed whenever you Google sheds.
Yes.
That's still a bit of a dominating market, but like you said, what we provide is something very different. I mean, what most people in this industry provide, even the lower quality sheds, end up being obviously something better than you're going to find on like a plastic pallet if you just go into a big box store. There's
Yeah.
just two different value propositions here. So, do you think there's an educational piece that we're missing with the ad copy and trying to reach the
Absolutely.
consumer? How do we
Absolutely.
do better?
Well, yeah, it's a great question because, yeah, I believe that there's a huge misalignment because what happens is when you put a fancy building with a price, people are going to compare price. When you put a fancy building with your build specs, but not just your build specs, people won't care about that stuff. People want to show me, don't tell me, right? That's the old saying that in the film industry: show me, don't tell me, right? Show me what it looks like when you describe something. Show me how you build this. Take your camera inside the shop. That's my philosophy. Take a camera inside the shop, show them how they're built. Then they're going to go, "Oh, so this is like a tiny house. Like this is like a totally different structure." Yeah. Yeah, what we're building essentially is we're building I think if I miss if I understand right, an estate is considered multiple structures on a property, right? So what we're building for you is essentially an estate, right? Because you've got multiple structures on one property that are these are permanent structures, buildings that will last you 30 years, not a resin plastic shed that the next tornado season it's going to be blown over, right? Or at least you're playing that dice. You're gambling. So I really do think it comes down to three things: education, radical transparency, and expectation alignment. And let's just talk about the education part. If I can, if customers should understand how things work before they buy. Instead of just showing them a finished shed, companies could explain how the floor is framed, why certain materials are used, what makes a cheap shed fail, what actually drives pricing. Because people don't understand that. Like they think, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I was not only once I became a sales rep, I did pretty good, and so they put me into training as well because of my background in sales. And I had a guy come up to me. I had he had built this. He knew that he could build the same thing for a fraction of the cost, and that mindset's actually really common, especially with people that know what they're doing. Even people inside the industry sometimes struggle to explain pricing, right? So what I gave him, my original answer was, well, it depends on cost of materials, profit margins, labor, and we're a multi-million-dollar company. But I would never give that answer anymore because it was technically right, but it doesn't explain the value because they don't understand like what goes into it. Because when you buy a shed, you're not just buying a shed. You're buying the craftsmanship of that shed, which is unquantifiable, really, right? So we slap a price on it because we figure, because of our profit margins and this, but like, it's really unquantifiable, like the craftsmanship that really goes into these things. These are buildings that are meant to last, meant to withstand time. Technically it was a correct response, but it didn't help anybody understand the value. So today, how I'd explain is I'd tell people that if you compare this to a DIY shed or a box shed from Menards, or Amazon, then yes, they're going to be more expensive, but that's because they're not in the same category of product. These are permanent backyard structures built more like houses than temporary box structures, right? That's how I would explain it to a customer. That's how I'd explain it to a sales rep. And many sales reps, like I said at the beginning, still get that question of why is it priced the way that it is? And you're still going to always get that question, right? But my goal is to eliminate that question as much as possible and have the information on the ad copy, on the website, on the social media videos that you put out. And then every step of the way, so that by the time the customer comes in, they know exactly what category of product this is.
When your business depends on getting materials fast, you can't afford to wait around. At Three Oaks Trading Company, we get it. Your production schedule moves fast, and so do we. From studs, SPF, and SYP, to all your panels, siding, and flooring. Square edge or tongue and groove, OSB or plywood, we're stocked, ready, and delivering across the U.S., often in just 3 to 5 business days. Our team specializes in serving shed builders and manufacturers, providing the products you need when you need them. Because your next build shouldn't be waiting on a delivery truck. So if you're ready for reliable service, quick turnaround, and a partner who understands your business, reach out to Three Oaks Trading Company today. Call 833-214-1723 or visit threeoakstradingco.com to get started. Three Oaks Trading Company. Fast, dependable, built for builders.
I think it's helpful in understanding that from a basic principle. Most people don't understand. I say most people don't. My experience has taught me that they don't know what 16 on center, is. But whenever you can walk in there and actually explain to them why it's 16 OC and explain to them how R13 bat insulation will fit into that perfectly, and you could just, staple down the edges to it. So if you're looking to, finish this thing out, or at least turn it into some kind of pool house or whatever. I don't know, just a man cave or a she shed or whatever all the fun words are now that, we used to sell these things, but if you walk them in and explain that, we've been really talking heavily about this exploratory shed lot because we feel so disconnected sometimes from the industry. I haven't sold a shed since before COVID, and you start to get a little bit like out of you're talking to people about something that you're like, I'm
the
talking
market,
about
things have changed. The market has changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that we want to do is be relevant. And part of that is, we're talking about lower inventory and highly educating displays, where
Yes.
you do understand that R13 will fit in between there. Why do you not want 24 on center? Well, you can, because you can get insulation that fits inside of that as well too. But, this is more, to your words, more like a house. You're going to see a house that's going to 16 on centers. It's going to have double top plates. The spacing on the seams on the top plates are going to be offset. There's going to be dead wood in the corner, possibly in case you want to finish it out and butt your drywall up to it. But people want to see those things, whether you're doing a video of them when you're doing your walk around on your lot to try and pull in customers as a lead magnet, or whether there are customers there in front of you. You want to, quickly get to, it feels like what they want to use it for, and then showcase why this will be the best benefit versus a typical plastic shed.
That's the question I always ask them right at the beginning was, what are we using it for? Because if I could know that, if I could really nail that down first, everything else comes into alignment, right? And while I was at my previous employer, I was developing marketing materials like you were describing and signage that would describe what these things were. Because I was noticing a lot that, people would purposely go onto the lot when we were closed. So that way they could see the buildings for themselves, touch, feel, taste, all of this stuff without feeling like that sales pressure, right? But I feel in my head, so then that's why we were trying to develop these marketing materials and signage to show off the quality and the value of the shed, before they talk to a sales rep. In my head, I'm hoping that those kinds of things don't necessarily have to happen, but I wouldn't resist it. I would lean into it. Depending on your shed lot, some sheds need to be locked up. I get that. But have sheds, have signage that shows off what your building actually is and the features and benefits that apply to them. Because if I say 16 inches on center to a random stranger, they're going to go, huh? And I'd be like, well, here's why that matters to you. Because typical structures are further and far, less wood means less quality, right? Is what I would tell people, right? So less wood, less quality. You're also, if you don't have that double top plate, here's what that means. That means that roof could, fly off at any given moment, or it's not going to support the weight of that roof very well. And then you want to throw in a window there. Every opening is another dent in that structure. So if you don't have double top plates on the top and then, proper framing of the windows, then the integrity of the whole entire shed is at risk. Right. And so that's what people, but they don't understand that. But when I explain it to them that way of like, hey, I don't want you to have this shed blow over in the next tornado season, they understand. Because we get, here in Missouri, we get really heavy winds, and it's just, and then you're just playing that gamble of, oh, is that shed going to last this next season? Maybe, maybe not. But with this, unless tornado directly hits it or some other debris directly hits it, it's not going anywhere. And as I've seen, even when they do, they just topple over. You just put them back up. It's pretty amazing, incredible structures. But again, if the customer doesn't understand that, then they're just going to think it's another shed from Amazon.
I got this saying, buying cheap costs you more. And people are like, what do you mean? Yep. How could it cost me more? And it's like, because you ultimately end up still buying the better product also. So now you've bought the cheap, product, whatever it is, if it's a shed in this case, and your experience has taught you, I didn't get the right thing. I mean, I got a good deal, but it didn't serve the purpose I need. So now I turn around and have to buy the quality shed at the right price. So buying cheap actually costs you more. At least it has in my life. Anytime I've tried to save, I end up going and buying the better thing anyway. Once I'm frustrated, there's very few things in which the quality, like of buying cheaper, turns out to be more beneficial. There are certain things in my life that I will always pay quote unquote name brand pricing for, because it's going to be worth it, And, but how do we get that education to the customer? You've got a marketing company, Bear Country Marketing, for those who want to go check it out. You've been in the shed industry. Give me a little bit of, I want to make sure to come back to, I got two things in my mind right now. First is I want to know your journey. And I'd like for the audience to sort of know a little bit about how you got to be here. Then the other question I want to ask is like, how do we, because you're marketing for people in the shed industry, what's some of your best advice on, not just your advice to them, and how to approach their marketing needs, but even like what kind of like ad copy you should be putting out there. I'm wondering if there's some freebies, some things we can throw out there, some information we can throw out there.
Yeah, and this is information, by the way, and I'll get to that. I'll explain my journey first, and then I'll talk about this. This is something that you can take home and do tonight. You can essentially, or go talk to your web. I'm going to give you something today that you can go on ChatGPT probably first, and then copy that and paste it and give it to your web designer to throw up on the website to help create better education and more transparency. And then, a couple other things that you can do too, from a Google Map standpoint, because that's really usually, in my experience, the first thing that people notice about you. So so I'm always looking at the front door. What does the front door look like? If the front door doesn't look right, people won't walk in.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone. No cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
So my journey really started, I would even say 10 years ago, as I was, I've always been entrepreneurial minded, but I know that I needed to learn the skill of sales. And so I went out and I sold all sorts of different things. But the main thing that I got from that was communication is everything. Everything. Proper communication, proper communicating of the product, proper communicating of the value, of the price, and aligning the customer's needs, right? That was always on the forefront. Like those are the skills that I really learned during sales. And then I saw sales and I went, I'm really more of a marketer, I think. I think because I'm a marketer that thinks like a sales rep. That's very different from most marketers in today's industry. I think like a sales rep. I think, okay, if I give this lead to myself tomorrow, am I going to be happy with my marketer or I'm going to be upset with him? Mm-hmm. Right? Because as sales reps know, they'll understand this. Like a bad lead could make or break your day, depending on your mindset. And so, yeah, I'm like, okay, is this the lead I would give to myself today? That I kept asking myself that question as I started learning. So I read a bunch, I read some books, .com Secrets. I still love that book. I don't know how much it applies to the shed industry because it's really more e-commerce. But Expert Secrets, also by Russell Brunson. Same. I'd recommend that to anybody because that applies to just about anything. It's really helping monetize yourself, essentially. It's great books. And then I read several other ones like Marketing Stories, Customer Stories, Raving Fans. All these books I understood that if the customer understands what they're buying before they walk into the sales lot, things are moving much smoother. Like helping people properly funnel them through a process. That's what that taught me. So then I did all the typical marketing stuff, right? So I came into the shed industry as a sales rep first, which was great. I was so happy about that because it taught me on the ground, boots on the ground, exactly what objections were coming up. So then I could help overcome those objections as a marketer before they even stepped on the lot. So that was really helpful. So then I became full-time marketer with my previous employer because they brought me on because they saw me as the skill, that skill. Totally redid the entire website because it was way too bloated. There were so many different things, and I was like, okay, we need to narrow this down, right? When you try to sell to everybody, you really sell to nobody. Like who are we? What's our target market? I kept saying that. What's our target market? Target market. I kept honing in, and so then I did all of these things. And one of the things that I was successful in, that I thought was good at the time was, I was part of a campaign I was part of a campaign that generated over 700 leads. On paper, that sounds really incredible and a marketing success, but out of those 700 leads, we only sold 5 actual buildings from those people within a 60-day time frame. So at first, it looks like a marketing failure, but the real issue was the education and trust, right? So I knew how to generate leads. I could do that. And by the way, I prefer generating leads on Google because they're actively searching for you. And what I found was those leads would close at a much higher rate. You'll be spending more money, but it kind of goes back to you're saying buying cheap always, you always end up buying more. It always ends up being more expensive. I learned the same thing with Facebook leads. I'm not saying that Facebook leads are bad. And I'm just saying that the campaign that we ran didn't inform the buyer enough, because what they were thinking was, oh, I'm going to just fill out this form and get all this information that I don't know about already, right? And so then I very quickly found the disconnect, because I was the one that was calling these leads, right? So I'd be calling these leads and they're yelling at me, being like, hey, I just filled out the form in the middle of the night, and now you're calling me first thing in the morning. I'm not even ready for another year. And I don't know how many times, countless times, I would get that same phone call over and over and over again. Luckily, I was a sales rep, so I was able to navigate the call. But look, I'm working uphill now, right? So when people think, oh, I just wanted information about a tiny house, that's great. But now I'm wasting time talking to you and explaining to you the difference between this tiny house, the shed, what you're getting, whatever it is. And so
I feel
that's
like
kind of where I came from. That frustration is where the reason why I'm in business.
I feel like it's because, you have to go back to the origin, the origin of the apps. Why is Google created? What is the purpose of Facebook? So now if you look at, of course, Meta ads is, where it's at now because of Instagram and everything. But if you take a look at Google and Meta, and you just say, well, if these are two of the places that we typically go and run advertising. Well, I mean, you've got all these other search engines included, Bing and Microsoft Edge and all these different. But if we just use Google as the assumption that it has been the premier search query location, meaning it has become so common that it's made its way into our everyday vernacular that whenever we don't know an answer to something, we say, go Google it, because Google will have the information. And all Google is doing is suggesting, 31,000 options within, 2 seconds based off of your search criteria, meaning your keywords. So that means your search query, you're actively interested in a watch. So you're Googling the best place to find a watch. And then, of course, it's going to bring you up what it believes is its best options. Social media, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is typically leisure time. It is typically a moment to unwind. It is a book of your face. It is a book of your life, right? That is the purpose of it. MySpace was that first,
Yep.
And then you've seen so many come out since then, but the purpose of it is to scroll leisurely. And the thought on the marketing side of that, I think, is, hey, I can get you in front of these people who are leisurely scrolling, but who have an interest or have clicked on information about sheds or information about a horse run-in or a storage barn or a carport. And then what I can do is I can bring you a bunch of those leads. But that's disruptive, meaning that you're disrupting their free time. They're not actually looking for a shed. They're looking at whatever's going on in their friend's life, and then boop, up comes an ad of a four-wheeler or a shed or a motorcycle. So everyone's striving to try and get your attention, even as you scroll leisurely, much like if you watch television and you get a commercial. It's disrupting the show. It's disrupting your entertainment time to say, oh, got a product for sale here, may be interested in, which is why so many people have had success in marketplace and local Facebook groups, is because people will just go there, not with any intention in mind a lot of times, but just scroll through just to see what's out there. And then you'll find a lead. But Google's much more intentional, or any search query engine is really going to be much more effective, but Google obviously leads the pack. So that's why you believe that Google ads are producing a better leads, because they're more intentional, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on average, you'll be spending anywhere between, I got them down to $25, but it wasn't always that way. It's anywhere, there's people in this industry that'll tell you, oh yeah, $20 a lead. I'm like, not if you want to, really narrow them down. And that's what I'm all about. I'm more of a sniper approach. I really hate, going through the haystack to find the needle. It's exhausting.
Uh-huh.
And that's what you're asking your sales reps to do when you give them a bunch of leads with these kinds of leads. When you give them a bunch of leads that are people just filling out a form so they can get more information on it, so they can look at it at a later date, you're sending that directly to a sales rep. Again, it's that disruptive of like, I was hoping in good faith when I gave you my phone number that you were going to give me the information that I'm asking, that I was assuming based on the ad copy. But now you're telling me I needed an appointment. No, thanks. That's why people got frustrated with me, is because I was pushing for an appointment when they didn't even know they didn't even know if they could afford the building yet.
Didn't even know the price on it. Yeah. Wasn't even really in the ballpark of like what one would cost.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're just like, hey, I'm looking at tiny houses, and I'm looking up these YouTube videos telling me it's $35,000. I'm like, yeah, if you do everything yourself, are you prepared to get a nail and a hammer? That was the, I'd have these conversations, but I was realizing how much money was the company wasting on conversations not aligned with sheds, or not aligned with this at all. So again, that it's trying to find that needle in the hay, going through the hay to find the needle, and that's typical sales hustle culture. But I tell you, man, I would much rather talk to somebody who's excited to know about the shed options for their situation than trying to convince somebody or persuade them into purchasing, whatever it is. Like, look at all these features and benefits, but how does that apply to me? I don't care. Or, I'm wasting time, valuable time, right? Like, how much money are you wasting having your sales reps have to sift through
persuading a buyer in other than assisting an actual buyer? I'm having to persuade a potential buyer because I've got them on the hook, right, long enough with the Facebook ad copy that's out there, and then they fill out a lead form, maybe give you name, phone number, zip code, something along those lines, and then boom, you follow up, and you're treating them like a customer who has been vetted to the point that they're almost ready to buy, and they're not. They're really not only not looking to buy, they're almost wondering why you're bothering them, even though they filled out information. They're like, wow, I didn't expect you to actually call me, or I didn't need a hard sell here. Whereas the people who are Googling specifically, or even 3D modelers, and these are pretty, they're going through the process of building their shed and what it might look like. These are much warmer leads.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well-manicured lawns and well-manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well-constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well-built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard-earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high-quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer, and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime.
How do you get, and I think this is the audience's question, I almost hear it in my ear as this episode comes out. How do you get those, Isaac? How do you focus and get those serious buyers, those serious leads only, even if they are $25, $50 a lead, worth it to sell a shed instead of spending $50 worth of lead generation on just people scrolling mindlessly through doom scrolling on Facebook or something? Like, how do you target those specific warmer leads, I guess is my question.
Well, the shed industry has incredible craftsmanship, but they not fully learned how yet to show that craftsmanship online. I think that's really the key. If we can show them the craftsmanship online and do that at the beginning in the ad copy, in your Google listing maps, on your Google map listing, and in your Google ads, and on the website. These are, and on your social media. Like, all of these things are the front door to your company, right? Whether you like it or not. You've got your physical sign, but with the most of the time before I walk out of my front door to go to someplace, I'm looking you up on Google. That's the first thing I'm doing, right? So if that right there doesn't create intrigue, education, and price transparency, I'm out. I don't know, that's the first thing that I want somebody to see, right? If somebody had, you can, Google Maps listing now has these things where you can put images and graphics up now. It's almost like treated like a mini social media platform, where it's like a fancy business card, essentially. It's a digital business card. That's what I call a Google listing, map listing mostly. So many listings just show a shed and a price. Again, that's just going to have them compare price. Instead, companies could create a short walkthrough videos explaining how the floor was built, why the roof pitch matters, what certain materials are used, why their sheds laster than their cheaper alternatives. Gamers have this saying when they're looking at a potential video game they want to purchase, and they say, "Show me the gameplay." Essentially in the shed industry, that means show me the build quality. Show it to me. Show me. Don't tell me. Right? So that's the number one thing. Whip out your camera. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't even have to show your face. But explain to the customer as if they're a third grader why you want 16 inches on center, why a double top plate matters, why the roof pitch matters, why this is going to last you longer than their cheaper alternatives. That's what people want. And then I'd say boost that, right? So I always say, you want to test things out organically before you ever throw money at it. I would never throw money at an ad I haven't tested with my audience yet, right? So I always test things out first. So I'll test it out with my current audience and then see if I get some response, and then I'll throw some money on it, right? And make that your ad. Instead of an ad being, "Hey, check out these new prices, $12.50 for cabins for starting out at $1,300." Those kind of marketing tactics don't work. At least not with they don't work as well as something like whipping out your phone and saying, "Hey, let me tell you 3 things that you need to know before you purchase a shed." See how it's different? Now that's completely changes the game. I'm not trying to sell you this shed. I'm not even trying to show you my shed necessarily. I'm just showing you things that you want to work out for. So I actually proved this with my TikTok account. With my TikTok account, I proved that this shed industry can go viral, but you have to frame it right. Instead of most shed companies, they'll go, ooh, check out this cool walkthrough. They'll take their camera out and they'll go, okay, check out this. Look, you can have a bathroom in there and that, and that's fine. I mean, that's cool and all, but you know, those videos will get you 300, 300 views, 1,000 views if you're lucky, right? Maybe 2,000 views. Maybe it's a really cool looking model. Maybe you'll get to 10,000 if you're lucky, right? But the number one video that I got 2.4 million views on was me whipping out my phone and saying, here's the things that you need to know before you purchase a shed for a tiny house conversion. That's the hook. And then I just went into it. You're going to want LP sided. You're going to want this. You're going to not want this. You're going to want, if you have skids, you're going to have figure out a concrete education is so important. Oh my gosh. We do not do that enough in the shed industry. Like if somebody wants anything bigger than a 12 by 16, right? I'm like, you got to have some sort of foundation, concrete, piers. Piers are my favorite. I love piers because they're the cheaper option. And you can always put skirting around it. It creates kind of like a ventilation underneath. I love piers, big fan of them, but most people don't even know what they are, right? And so, and they're a much cheaper alternative than a concrete pad, unless you're just having your neighbor, pour it. But most of the time, concrete's expensive and you want to make sure that you get it done right the first time. And proper education on that. I mean, oh my gosh, I've run into so many nightmares where they'll have some other company do the concrete. We come in, we place the building on it, and now they've got to cut the concrete because it's not right. It's not level. And that's
just site prep in general, just site prep education in general.
Yes,
probably could go a long way. And I think there's even an opportunity there for shed manufacturers and shed sellers to partner with their local, service providers. These are opportunities. Like if you're going to be a professional salesperson, I think what sets you aside from being an order taker and a professional shed seller is whenever you go the extra distance, you have phone numbers and you learn all the how to break down all the barriers to the potential sale, whether it be you're in an HOA area or you need to get a permit or where do I get site prep? You'd hate for somebody because they couldn't find a site prep to not buy a shed. And if you're okay with them not buying a shed, then I don't know why you're in that profession or if you're treating it seriously, which I think is why you often get trouble in financing, rent to own, repos. That's why we get and I'm not saying that is a blanket statement. I'm just saying it's a perfect example. You talked about showing the quality. One of the things I love to point out is the paint. I think I told you, I'm segueing this straight into really what you're discussing, which is an educational situation, which is what my friends over at Pittsburgh Paint's doing. We all recognize the first impression on the customer is the paint. But I want to take a moment and just give them some love. Yes, they're an exclusive paint provider over at Shed Geek, and we recommend them. We love the rebrand that they're doing. I love the True Industrial and True Shed Max program because they're doing exactly what you're talking about, Isaac. They're offering local stores, local stock, local service. They're able to come in and maximize your experience with your customer, maximize your experience as a manufacturer. It's why we wanted to partner with them. They've been really great to do this. The True Shed Max program, it's about more than paint. I promise you, it's about the customer service you're getting, the education you're getting to. So big shout out to them. I'm just super thankful for them to be part of this. To learn more about Pittsburgh Paint, True Industrial, and True Shed Max program, get in touch with Pittsburgh Paint today. Or if you would like to get in touch with one of their representatives, we at Shed Geek will be happy to make that happen. So big fan of what they're doing, Isaac. It is exactly what you're saying. It's educating. They're coming out to your location and spraying a shed with you, right?
Oh,
It's
love
exactly
that. That's
what
exactly
you're
what you need.
talking about, which is like, hey, I can tell you about our program. But let's go out here. Let's get boots on the ground. I've even offered to go out myself and throw on a paint suit or whatever, and like
Mhm.
shoot some video and like do what you're talking about, which is like, well, why should I buy Pittsburgh paint? Well, this is why. They're going to go the distance in the partner program to show you what they're talking about. So it's the same approach that you need to take. And you've built some of this stuff for the industry. I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing anything, but like there's,
Yeah.
we're 45 minutes in. I want to make sure that you get plenty of mic time. So, you know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts on sharing any of that?
Are you swimming in leads but struggling to close the deal? It's time to turn those leads into profits with Making Sales Simple, the ultimate sales training program designed specifically for shed sales professionals. At Making Sales Simple, we understand the challenges you face, overwhelmed by inquiries, unsure how to follow up, and missing opportunities that can boost your bottom line. Our proven techniques help you and your team master the art of connecting with customers, building trust, and closing deals like never before. Whether you're new to the industry or a seasoned pro, this training will sharpen your skills, increase your conversions, and drive your business to new heights. Don't let those leads go cold. Invest in your team's success today. Making sales simple, because every lead deserves a closer.
Oh, I just love that, going back. Like, I loved having Lindsay Window, for example, come in and talk to us sales reps. That was amazing. Things like that. I'm not necessarily, obviously not sponsored, but like those, when companies do that, that's educating. If you can educate your sales rep, then they will educate the customer better. And in my head, as an owner, I think it's good to educate too. So if they see you at the forefront, then when they go talk to a sales rep, the messaging is the same, no matter they go on the website, whether they go onto the Google listing, whether they go onto the ads copy, whether they go onto your video that you shared. I want all that messaging to be the exact or to be similar, right? The same overall theme. This is a permanent structure that's going to be in your home for the next, in your backyard for the next 30 years. That same understanding, and why they're priced the way that they are, right? Not just some shed that you buy at Home Depot. If you can put that all along the whole sales process, then by the time they go into the sale, it's basically a formality, right? Then they can go dive in deep. As a sales rep, I loved it when customers asked me, hey, what size do I need for my situation? What colors do you suggest? Can you match my house? Where would you suggest putting this in my backyard to make it look the prettiest? These are customer problems that are super overwhelming. And that's what a good sales rep should have to do. Not have to persuade them and convince them that the price is justified. That's the last thing I want a sales rep to do. So here's an example of I'll take you through an example of what I've built to help build that education. Because as many people, a lot of sales reps are getting right now the question about tiny houses. A lot of sales reps are getting very frustrated at this because they feel like they're wasting their time. And when they feel like they're wasting their time, they're going to go somewhere else. Right. And I've seen it happen way too many times, where a sales reps gets burnt out because they're trying to sell all of these tiny house guys, and they're not builders, they're sales reps, right? And so they're not designers. And so they get super overwhelmed. The customer gets overwhelmed. And by the time they make the sale, they're like, wait a minute, I made $10 an hour, right? Because I spent so much time with them, and now their commission check doesn't look so nice anymore. So that it's understandable, right? Because we're trying to, a shed sales rep shouldn't be sitting there trying to design a house, right? They're going to get burnt out, and then it's costing you money as the owner, because now you're having to replace that person. It costs way more money to replace a person than to keep somebody on. We all know that.
Absolutely. Retention.
So,
yes, sir.
So that's how do you get sales reps to not burn out? Well, let me show you something. Instead of trying to convince them of like what the shiny, you can sell to these tiny house guys, but they have to understand some things before they buy a shed, right? So that's why I created the 14 by 40 price shed to home conversion cost guide. Let's go on this. So if you're just listening, and I'll try to explain it best as possible. But luckily, hopefully you're watching this so you actually kind of see it too. So maybe you can go back and watch the recording and check it out. But check this out. So you've got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 14 by 40 shed to home conversion cost guide, right? So what this does is it helps educate the customer on what they need to do way before they ever have to, look at buying an actual shed for this project, right? So here's roughly, and it shows you the cost right up front. Here's the rough estimate cost. It's anywhere between $23,000 and $48,000 for your DIY finish out. That's very specific distinction, right? And then if you're hiring it out, it's going to be anywhere between $66,000 and $98,000. These are what customers want to know before they ever. Before we ever do this. Unfortunately, what happens is oftentimes as a sales rep myself, what I would do is I would design here's where the windows are going to go. Where do you want the doors? Where do you want this? And they didn't even know if they could afford it. Because in their head, they're thinking, yeah, we can do this for $20,000.
Yeah.
We can do
or less. In
easy,
most cases.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is finally my dream of not being able to buy a house has finally come true. I can afford $20,000. I can convince a bank, right? Unfortunately, that is not the case, right? Because most banks won't finance something like this. They can if you show them the proper paperwork, if you show them how they're built, but it's not going to be easy, right? So anyway, this is why I developed this so that I could eliminate all of those customers that were tiny house tire kickers or tiny house window shoppers. This eliminates 90% of those because I show them this is what it's going to cost you, like right on the front page. And then I break it down, right? So let's go to the second page. So you've got, this is just a basic floor plan for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 14 by 40. This is what it would look like. You saw the floor plan at the beginning. This is the shell price. You're going to be spending anywhere between $13,000 and $22,000 just on the shell alone, right? And then you're going to be your DIY finish out costs, and such. So when you're going through these different things, you'll find then it gives you a whole price breakdown right here. So. Okay, so like this is what it would cost you fully turnkey, because people will ask every single time. These sales reps will ask, the customer will ask, hey, so can you finish these out? I'm like, well, no, but here's approximately what it's going to cost you. And as you said, good sales reps will create sales reps
options.
Will actually, we'll give you those options. Here's a contractor I know. Here's a window guy I know. Here's a painter I know. So then this breaks it down right here. And exactly, it's not going to be perfect, but it gives them averages, gives them price ranges. If you can do this exact same thing on the website, again, you're eliminating 90% of those tire kickers. So this is just one example of things that I do in order to narrow down and create better leads.
And I would even say for those that are jumping into actual tiny homes, of course, you have the whole rent to own, finance, like have to have that conversation. But for those who are purchasing outright or whatever, and DIYing this thing themselves, a lot of times, just that education would just go a long way. That initial education early on would just help stop a lot of the time wasting adventures that you're on, and get back to what Charles Hutchins says, money making activities, and you can get back to like focusing on things that actually matter. I remember I would educate I always felt like it was never my responsibility. In some ways, it was like I'm becoming a financial advisor for them, but then I'm also becoming more than a financial advisor. I'm almost becoming, project manager for them, depending on
Yep.
how deep they're going into this project. And then you really have to like wrestle with how much is that time worth for the sale? Like how long should the customer purchase acquisition be? Like what is it normally in the shed space? If you're building a house with someone, you got to spend months with them planning the doors, planning where you're going to put the range hood at, where you're going to put are the doors going to be in swing or out swing or whatever. Like you go through some of those details with a shed buyer, but generally speaking, they're buying a storage unit in most cases. So you can get through it pretty quickly, but you've got to figure out how to like maximize your time to get to what matters. In other words, that's kind of what we're saying here today is like, in many ways is like getting to what matters quickly. I don't know, dude. I love it. I love what you built. I love everything about, getting to know you and getting to know you further. Hopefully, well, you just had a new baby. Tell me a little bit about Isaac before we get out of here. Who is Isaac? I know you just had a baby and you're supposed to come over next week, so we can't wait to meet you in person. But who are you to the audience? Just a little bit more. What's your personal life look like?
I'm very much, I'm a family guy. Very much, I apply a lot of these same principles to my personal life as well. If I can give reasons to why I'm asking my child to do something, things move over a lot sooner. I mean, and she's only 2.5. Okay, she understands a lot more than I give her credit for. And if I can explain to her, even if she doesn't fully understand, she'll understand the energy of that. What I'm trying to say. Like, no, I don't want you to touch the stove. I don't want you to be next to the stove, so you're tempted to touch it. These are basic things that I also apply to my parenting too. So, I come from a background of being, just do as I say, not as I do. I come from a background of, okay, just do it because I say the number one problem in this country is the trust me, bro problem. It's building trust. Trust me, bro. It's going to work out. Trust me, bro. It's going to work out. Like whatever it is, whether it's the government telling you that, whether it's companies telling you that, just trust me. It'll be okay. No, I want you to show me why. And then, so then there's not a problem. And so that's exactly in my personal life as well, is I try to apply that same principle. Or I'll do it to myself with self-management of like, is this thing really the most important thing to do today? Like, why am I so hyper fixated? Am I doing this because somebody told me I needed to do this? Or is it because I truly want to do it and I know that this is going to be my money making things? Right?
I'm picking up on a few keywords here in communication, Isaac, and I can gladly edit this out. But am I picking up on some ADHD qualities in there somewhere?
No, you don't need to edit that out at all. No, I'm a pattern recognizer. I tell people all the time I'm very dyslexic as well. But what that gives me is, instead of, I've been trying to look at it a little bit better. People see it as a learning disability. I see it as I can see things that you're not seeing. Right? If I look at words at a page, I'm going to get them jumbled up. I'm going to suck at spelling. But here's what I can do, right? If I look at your business and I can see your sales process, I'm going to see things that you haven't seen before. I'm going to notice things that you have never noticed before. Hey, did you notice that this ad copy is not, some people are saying this about it? Or did you notice that your sales reps are saying this, when you're not looking, things like, have you noticed that, this sales rep could have been, is explaining your product wrong simply because they haven't walked through the building with the customer yet? Just little things that really bleed revenue. A lot of these things that you can't quantify. There's so many things that like companies lose so much money along the sales process, whether it's having to hire a new sales rep, People not responding to your text messages or phone calls, or people exiting your website because there's no prices, right? Like that creates these walls, because I don't know about you, but I've been marketed to far too much in my life. How many ads per day do I see? Our brain starts to just block them out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be scrolling on Facebook. I don't even see the ads anymore. You know why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know which ones are ads and which ones aren't. So you go back to your question of like what you can do tonight for your ad copy. Look at your ad and say, does it look like an ad or does it look like an information piece?
I got to tell you, where
You
there's
do that
ADHD
tonight and be like, nope, not this ad, not this ad. Oh, you might have to redo your whole ad spend, but it's something to consider.
Where there's ADHD, there's entrepreneurship. I promise you. And like, because of things like that, the pattern recognition, I love that. Me personally, highly, love to tap into emotional intelligence and body language and all the stuff.
Oh, so
Communication is one of the things that means so much to me. And I love that in the sales process, because those words are the best thing that we've found a way to communicate with each other through that education system, using words. But I think that there's a far greater sometimes language that's being spoken than the words we speak, and that's often what's being said in the body. And like you can, like tapping into those things as a sales manager, the human qualities we have, the five senses we have, being able to use those to set a stage, not to set a hook, and not to try and like bamboozle people in the shed selling space or any selling space.
If they're educated properly.
That's right. And look, still working on it ourselves, getting better. Man, right. We've ran an hour through really quick, and I tell everybody, it goes way faster than anybody ever realizes while you're talking. It's just good conversation with people who are in this space trying to do things similar to what we're doing, helping people. I love that you've ventured into this, found your way into this space. I mean, I know a little bit more about your story, landing in Missouri, coming from Utah. Maybe we can do an episode 2. We'll get some more of that stuff in there or whatever.
I've got some great stories to tell.
I'm sure. And I'm certainly looking forward to meeting you. Congratulations on your newest member of the family being born there. And I'm excited to get to know you more as we continue to explore these things in the shed space. It's just been great knowing you so far. I love the content that you're putting out on Facebook. I see a lot of it on your personal page, but some of it floats through the Shed Sales Professionals page. Yeah, man, I love it. I feel like an educated, consumer can do so much more. And we're just growing up. We're maturing in the shed industry, as they say. So, Isaac, I can't say enough. Any final thoughts that you have to give? Any shout outs? Any just any final words of wisdom from Isaac Neal?
One thing that I would say is that the goal of marketing should not to be generating more leads. The goal should be creating more informed buyers. And I think that's definitely the theme of this. And if you want to learn more about what I can do for you and your company to be able to do that, to create more informed buyers, I've been at every point of this sales process, whether it was the face of the company at times, and then into the marketing, the business development rep, calling these leads and closing them. I've been at every single point of this process. And even had some customer service calls. That can also be a thing. Like you're going to have lots less customer service calls when you create a more informed buyers, because they feel good about their purchase. They should never feel bad about their purchase. Then that's not really a sale worth having. So if you want to learn more about like how this can work, you can obviously follow me on Facebook, Isaac Neal. But also check out my website, what I'm doing. If you want to potentially work with me, I'm pretty selective on who I work with. But the door's open right now on that. So you can go to bearcountrymarketing.com, fill out the form, apply, see what we can do, and see how we can help you.
We'll make sure to put a link on the description with the thumbnail. So if you just click on the thumbnail in the newsletter, you'll be able to go to Bear Country Marketing and learn more. If you need to be put in touch with someone and you're not sure how to, just contact me. I'm happy to. We are working on professional collaboration here. And that's why the consultation for us has been so important, is because, we're using that as an educational piece to be able to help, and, sometimes we find that, sending them to someone else best fits their needs. It's not always us that best fits their needs. And I think that's just the transparency you talked about, being able to do
being
that.
A team player
and
too.
Being a team player, just, wanting to see good for the industry in general, and good for companies who trust us, reach out to us and listen to us. Cause you've already alluded to this. Trust me, bro, is so simply used. We want to actually say, trust me. And then you can trust us, like based off our experience. Yeah.
Based on the experience and the results that I can provide. Yeah.
That's right. It's what we're aiming for. That's what 2026 is all about. Isaac, I can't say enough good things about you. It's been just a pleasure getting to know you, and I look forward to many more conversations, sir. Thank you for being a guest today.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com. or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you, and have a blessed day.